All right, everybody. It is 11:11 on my clock, which is otherwise known as a synchronistic event. I talk a little bit about synchronicity. I talk a little bit about mysticism, not so much in a religious aspect, but as an in a a personal experience that I don't fully understand. I know it is typical human fashion to rush to judgment that if you run into something that you don't understand, it's coming from some type of deity or it's coming from some type of villainous, spiritual enemy character energy, blah 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 blah. I've done a lot of research on this, and what I found is like I'm totally fine with not knowing, and I think that's the whole foundation of what a mystery is. That you come, you become okay with paradox. You become okay with, hey, this is just. It's not that this is the way it's meant to be. It's that you were never meant to understand how it was meant to be, and that you have a certain limitation for your best benefit. And I'm like I said before in many streams, I'm not here to judge people for what they choose to believe. I'm just going to say, hey, this is my experience. What I found out. One of the experiences that I've always had fun with is my expression with music. So I think that's something that I want to get into. And hold on one second. And like I said, I don't expect anybody to like what I play. I play sort of however I choose to. But I do want people to understand it's like this is only an invitation. You guys can come and listen to this, but 2023 is going to be insane for me. And I've been having these synchronistic experiences now for the better part of 5 to 6 years. And I've tried to calculate down the origin of when they started, but every time I do, I start to realize that my history had synchronistic events in them that I couldn't recognize. But the ability of recognizing those events, had an epicenter, and it had a trauma attached to them. And I started realizing, hey, the traumas that I did have in my life, whether they be good traumas or bad traumas, because there's a big difference between trauma and drama. Drama can be manufactured. Trauma can be manufactured. When people say these types of things that sort of try to elicit your responses for their best benefit, it can be a rotten, sort of frustrating thing to pay attention to. Either way, we're going to do the same thing we do all the time. We're going to play a little music. We're going to have some fun, and then we're going to talk about some crazy subjects connected to your politics. So sit back, if you're in the chat, realize anything you say is allowable, just like life. And if you choose to be disrespectful, you realize what you put out there is what you're probably going to get back. But until then, just sit back and relax and listen to this funky lounge guitar backing track in B minor. All right, here we go. It's very Backstreet Boys starting, but it doesn't quite come off that way. Anyway, well, guys, we're going to turn that off. Oh. It is fun to just play over stuff for the first like 5 to 10 minutes. I want to look up something here in a second, but I'm going to wait until maybe we get a few more people. Oh, wrong one. Good grief, man! This last week has been so shifting and so like I'm in one place and then I'm in another, and it's like, at least mentally, I mean, physically I'm doing fantastic. I feel wonderful. I go out and I do some type of exercise every day, and then I get up and just have a fascinating morning from about 5:30 to about 8:30, where I just let things wander in. I get online. I'm just going, oh, what's going on today? And I've been fascinated by how I should talk about myself, how I should say, hey, this is how I got to this point. I'm not saying this in a form of, oh, look at me, I'm the best of the best of the best. But I think it's important because I think there might be people out there that may be feeling the same way that I am about this reality right now. And it's not that, oh, I'm scared of it. It's like I'm more anxious about how I am being perceived by other people. Like right now, I mean, less than 10 years ago, no one would have said the word white supremacy, because it would have been silly to think about life that way. But now because it's been repeated over and over and over again. When I sit back and people are like, you should feel guilty, you should feel this, you should feel that, I'm like, no, absolutely not. I do not. Stop saying stuff like that. Otherwise, I have to, stand up for myself. It's almost like you're creating, the popular politics is creating a narrative where the vast majority of the American populace is forced to stand up for itself. I mean, think about all the movies that we've put together saying, hey, if someone's bullying you, you need to stand up for yourself. And then yet it portrays all the bullies as the, this white guy that's coming to take your stuff. Even the word that has been repeated over and over ad nauseum is this idea of colonization. This idea of being, you're being taken over by this idea of white Europeans. It's just like, wait a second, guys. You're just mad that white Europeans are the only ones that remember to write their shit down. Like the reason that you can't hold any of these other cultures accountable is because not only did they obliterate everything about the cultures that they dominated, but they obliterated all their history too. And then they didn't write anything down. So how can you hold people accountable to sins that were never recorded is my question. We have history, and we look at history through a lens of the people that recorded it. And now we're doing that with a 21st century mindset. And I'm getting to the point where I'm going, guys, we can't look at our, the guys that, built the world that we came from, with this 21st century ability. Like, you have a cell phone in your pocket that has access to more information than the entire civilizations that helped build this place. And so when I look at the nonsense that is being promoted out there, especially when it comes to me and how I sort of have to identify myself in this very bizarre way, where it's just like, I now have to identify myself as a father, as a dad, as a patriarch, right? As a father. Right, as a person that has a certain amount of authority over another person, because that person can't even feed himself right now. It's one of those responsibilities that you take on. And when you become a father, and before I became a father, there were certain amounts of responsibility that I took on of other people's lives. And I did it happily, and I did it with a smile on my face, where it's just like, hey, I have to learn what violence is so that other people don't even have to look at it if they don't want to. And so when I watch today, how people react to certain types of violence for the politically left-leaning ideas, where it's like, hey, it's okay for this, but then you sort of look at how something like January 6th or the insurrection concept, I'm just going, guys, this was manufactured. I was like, I've seen real revolution before. I've seen when people say, hey, you know, we're going into the streets with our guns and we're going to shoot anyone who doesn't look like us. I've seen that. And what I saw on January 6th, maybe because of my background and the things that I've seen in my life, I'm just going, that was manufactured bullshit. And it's like, I don't understand why the theater of your government is constantly being repeated and shown over and over and over again, and demanding that on pain of shunning, shaming, and ostracization, that if you don't call truth what they've actually fabricated, then you should be yelled at and screamed at by the populace. I saw something yesterday that really moved me, and it really resonated with a deep fundamental part of a problem that I've had. Like, I've always wondered, I'm like, even in the military, I was like, you have people that will do whatever is told of them to do. Like, they won't question it. And in some situations, it's absolutely vital that you don't question, because time is of the essence, and you just don't have time to sit there and go through all the nitty-gritty. Unfortunately, you know, we also have people that take advantage of that. It's like, oh, I don't have time to explain this to you. Just do what I say. Da da da. Next thing you know, you're looking back at, man, if hindsight's 20/20, man, I really wish I had a little bit more time to make what I could have thought would have been a more correct decision in that situation. Unfortunately, we are sitting here with this idea of, you know, something like January 6th or something, and that's, you know, your right-leaning version of violence. That's the whole idea. They're like, hey, look, the right is just so violent. They're so violent. Look how violent they are. It's like, actually, there was nothing violent about that. Nothing. You know, well, this one person got shot that one time. And like, we're talking about one person. Like, do we want to go back to the summer? Do we want to talk about all the craziness that has been spun up by people on the left? And I'm saying on both sides, even in that January 6th thing, look at all those people that where it was just a few little actors that were like, that engineered that whole thing. Just a few people, they herded these people into a place where they could contrive and build a scenario off of this. Even though, like, I guarantee you, the people that were putting this together, and I know this sounds like conspiracy craziness, but when you watch this stuff over and over again, you're going, dude, these people aren't talked about. The grand, you know, poobahs of saying, hey, we're going to the Capitol, we're going to the Capitol, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. It's like, they never get talked about. You know, where are these people? Yet you'll have these other people, like these fake people that are like, oh, these people are being brought to justice. This is a good blow. Like, I think I saw this New York Times article the other day was saying that, you know, one of these people that want to overthrow democracy. I'm just like, you don't have to overthrow democracy. It's already over, guys. You don't have one. You know, and that's my point, is like, I'm coming in here and I'm saying, hey, with my background and my understanding and my never wanting to ever get into the political side of things, I'm saying I have no reason to lie about the things that I went through and the things that I saw. And I'm sitting here just going, guys, you are not making decisions for your country. If you are a typical citizen and you don't have a lobbyist on speed dial, you do not matter. You don't count. And this endless, you know, attempt to make you think that your vote counts only does one thing, and that's for the people that are in charge. It pacifies you. It makes you think that you have a choice. It gives you that illusion. Meanwhile, you know, it's one of the biggest secrets that they're just never going to talk about. It'll never be brought up because it gives them so much power. And that's what they want. These people that get involved with these types of organizations, they come from organizations that pander to that type of psychological disorder, right? Where all they want is more and more and more power. And so when you see this, you're like, oh, you mean I can get more power by lying to people? Yes. Well, what do you want more? Is it more important for you to be an honorable person, or is it more important for you to have more power? Oh, it's more important for me to have more power? Well, then in that case, I'll lie to people. In that case, I'll abuse the system as my predecessor did, because that's how they got their power. You know, and so you have someone like me, and so, you know, you hear it all the time. It's like, take your power back. I'm like, I mean, to me, that's a really sort of cringe way of looking at it. I'm more of on the line of, you've always had your own setup. Like you could at any given moment say you're like I did. I'm done. Wipe your hands of it. I'm leaving. You know, just like you do with any type of breakup with any other type of situation. And when you break up, especially if you're a man, you need to break up the same way you always break up with any other girl. If you're a man and you break up, you need to break up and cut it off. No phone calls, no nothing. Hey, it's over. It's done. You take what you have and go about your business, and I'll take what I have and I'll go over here. But I'm not messing with that anymore. And so I guess you could say in a little way I am sort of messing it with here on Twitch. But it's more of in a facet of observation. Like I've said this before, I'm sitting here with my bag of popcorn, commenting on the theater show that I'm watching. That's what I'm doing. And so going back to this thing that happened yesterday, I saw this, saying that says 85% of people that you'll run into, 85% are followers. That's all they'll do. They're purebred. That's what their parents did. That's what their parents did. That's for generations. They are just followers. Just sort of like you have the difference between, a certain percentage of your population are medium-sized dogs, a certain population are big-sized dogs, certain population are small dogs. And each one of them have their own temperaments based off of what they bring to the table. And when I look at, this idea, if 85% of any dog pack, any dog group are followers. Then you get to the point where you have creators and leaders. 10% are creators and leaders, right? Where they're going to create something. They're going to create something for everyone else to follow. They're going to create the idea that is going to shape the group, right? And that leaves 5% left over. Out of that 95%, you have 5% that sort of act like this, who never need to be a part of the group. Or if they are part of the group, they are for their own benefit. And these people aren't necessarily leaders as much as they are observers. These people just observe. And I sort of when I heard this, I was like, man, I really identify with that, because that's sort of exactly what I'm doing is I'm observing and reporting. No, for no other instance than just to say, hey, if you guys want to hear an unbiased, like what it really looks like to be unbiased, I'm right here. Hi, guys. How's it going? I don't need to be Republican. I don't need to be Democrat. And I never have been, because, being told that I have to vote between these two bullshit options, otherwise I'm a bad person, this is exactly what I'm alluding to of the shunning and shaming and ostracization for not going along with the crowd. You know where I come from, we call that being part of a cult. And so here I am saying, guys, this whole two-party bullshit system democracy, either you're with us or against us, this is something that I grew up with, and I had to recognize it hard in the very bad way. It cost me my whole family, right? There is not a family member that I am allowed to even talk to now that isn't completely tainted by the multi-level marketing scam that was Mormonism. And it's still going strong today. So when I look at the macro versus microcosm of political concepts, I look at something like the Mormon Church and I'm going, they feed you with this idea of the fantasy of democracy. No different than the Mormon Church. They feed you with this idea, the fantasy of the afterlife, the celestial kingdom that you can make it to on the premise as long as you pay them their 10% taxes. Think about this. Your government does the same thing. You can have this wonderful world of democracy where your government will protect you, give you protection money, because you give them protection money with taxes. You build roads with taxes. I just sit there and I say, it's the exact same scam, guys. The exact same scam, where it's multi-level, meaning you have tiers of hierarchy, and at the very top, you have an infallible leader that's never challenged in public. Ever. I mean, even if the guy falls off a bike or can't pronounce the name of his ice cream right, or forgets who he's talking to, or shakes hands with ghosts, or falls up a flight of stairs 3 times in a row, it's like he's never challenged. Ever. Like, when's the next time he's going to be actually given not a pre-recorded, interview, an actual live interview where you can see the guy constantly fumbling over himself. And so from my mystical perspective, I sit here and I just wonder, I'm like, as an observer, as the guy who's just, hey, I'm no longer involved anymore. You guys have fun. I just, I've decided to go and move me and my family to a completely different country. And I'm just sitting here and just, but it's still fun to watch. It's like, I really do. I feel like a commentator that's, watching the fight play out. It's like, I don't care who wins, I'm going to say, hey, if I see some hanky stuff, it's like, oh, looks like some dirty boxing over here. Or, oh, look, a little low on the groin there. And I'll call the fight how I see it. And I'm saying, hey, one side is obviously getting a lot of extra help from the tech worlds than the other. And it's not even people that are tech savvy. It's the people that sit in the administrative roles that only went to these super hardcore liberal left-leaning schools and got their degree in business administration, right? Which doesn't require that much intelligence. These people are not that smart. And yet it is the tech, like if you look at Twitter, it's the tech guys that are sort of pushed out of that. Like when you see Facebook and you see Mark Zuckerberg, it's like, dude, I can see that guy and know that he's not, 100% liberal craziness, but he's sort of taken over because, the world that he's sort of built was out of the left-wing mindset. No different than Jack Dorsey. It's all about this blah, 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 blah. Whereas the right side says, hey, we're done talking. We're going to go build something now. We're all about action. We're all about, getting the thing done. This is why I've always said, it's like, if you're going to let a party revolt in your country and it has left-leaning, let it revolt as much as it wants, because it'll never do anything. These are people that have no idea how to get together and band and actually make a movement that moves forward for more than 5 minutes. Versus the idea of the tried and true, what is made of. When you look at your military, the vast majority of your military are conservative because they know what it costs if they screw up. They know it costs lives. They've seen it firsthand. They see it all the time. And so it's really important that they adhere to a standard, that they adhere to rules, that they sit there and they go, we don't break these rules because when we do, people die. And those people that usually end up dying are our best friends. So, talk about cohesiveness, talk about bringing, banding over something that's worthwhile and important. And then the highest rules of these categories are the ones of integrity, service, selfless excellence, saying, hey, I'm just going to be excellent in everything I do because that's the way I see existence. If you're going to do something, you better do it to the fullness of your ability. And so sitting here on the back end, like sort of watching all this stuff as the observer, I'm not mad. I'm not frustrated. Look at me. I'm able to be artistic. I'm able to express myself in a very bizarre way. I'm able to sit there and enjoy my life now. It's like, hey, I enjoyed almost a dozen years in the United States Air Force. I learned Arabic. I was able to learn network engineering. I was able to be this cryptologic linguist that was able to help me to see how people talk in multiple different cultures and multiple societies based off of their religions and their backgrounds. And now that I've come back to the United States and I've finally said, hey, you know what? What do I really think that I bring to the table? And I thought about it for a really long time. And I also thought about why I had to make some of the decisions that I did, where I had to leave. I said, I can't be here anymore. But what was really crazy is when the first time I tried to leave, the first time I said, hey, it's time for me to go on this adventure. It's time for me to say goodbye to America, saying, hey, you had your time. I'm done. See you later. Bye. I wish you the best. The moment I tried to leave, the whole world shut down again. The whole world. Like, I remember I had tickets to leave the country, and I was leaving on April 1st. 3 days. I think it was March 27th. 3 days before I was supposed to leave, they cut all travel for the COVID bullshit. And I couldn't help but acknowledge the synchronicity that went on there. It was very fascinating to me. Sat back, thought about it, and I was just like, this, all my plans to go to this, country halfway across the world into a place that spoke Russian, a language that I didn't speak, but I had every intention of learning. I got to the point where I started realizing, something else is going on here. My life wouldn't have been there's people out there that's like, oh, I was on this business trip, or I was planning on doing this, and then travel got shut down and we were told to lock down and we were told to do this. I was like, yeah, but I don't think a lot of other people had my intentions for what I was planning on doing in this place. And I think I'll talk a little bit more about that starting next year. Because how I arrived at this point of figuring out who I was and figuring out how I got my name. My name is Tet. It's a very unusual name. And this is a name that only came to me about a little over a year and a half ago. And it was something right when I changed into this person, right as I changed, that's when I met this wonderful woman who came into my life, and now I'm a father. Right as I did this shift where it's like, whoop, okay, now you're not this person anymore. You're this person. You need to be this person from this point forward. And I'm going, what? I'm not. And I remember telling myself this. It's like, I'm not running from anything. This is who I am. This is where I grew up. It's like, yes, that is how you got to this point. Hey, what's going on there, crew chief? Good morning, man. Just giving a little bit of backstory about how I got to this point and about why I don't live in America anymore, and why I don't play the politics game, and why I sit here as an observer, and why it's so much fun to sort of sit back and say, hey guys, I don't play in the game. I'm just one of these guys sitting here eating my popcorn going, hey, that looked like a low blow. Hey, that looked like some dirty boxing. But, at the end of the day, I'm not a ref. I'm still in Arizona, so I have to play the game. Hey man, I was born in Phoenix, man. I told you about this. So it's like, so where are you at with the game? What's hitting you today? How'd your little VA phone call turn out? Did you end up staying on there for another couple hours, wait for someone to may or may not help you with your problem, or to shuttle you off to another long line of bullshit? I mean, I know I'm laughing, but I'm only laughing because I've been there. 4.5 hours later, I finally got signed onto e-benefits in order to start what processes I wanted to do. Yeah, man. Hey, to tell you the honest truth, when it came to e-benefits and doing all the processes and getting it all set up and stuff, I honestly had to hire a lawyer. Because there was a law firm and it worked out for me, and I hired them, and I was like, hey, here's what they're doing. I don't know what else to do. And they're like, yeah, we can take care of this for you. And it did. It ended up taking like another 3 or 4 years to get it all figured out because of the response time. Like every time that they sent me something, they sent this lawyer something. And the lawyer knew the whole legal speak and all the stuff that was going on. And so he would just be like, here's what you need to sign. Here's what needs to go back. And we are going to, appeal this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this right on the money, right? Can you type out the law firm so I can give it to one of my friends? Absolutely, sure. It's called Woods and Woods. So here, let me type it out for you. They're awesome. They were great. I mean, I literally all I had to do, Woods and Woods. They're out of Tennessee. But they deal with all veterans nationally. So you just you give them a call, you tell them what's going on, they tell you if they can help you. And then the cool part is they don't ever ask for any money. They don't ask for shit, right? They sit there and they go, this is what we're going to do for you. We are going to try and help you get to where we think, according to what you've told us, make sure you have all your because the problem with the VA is they want to tell you that they're going to make these appointments for you. They're going to do all these things for you because you're making a claim about some things that happened to you in the military. Well, Woods and Woods, they take all that stuff down, and then they go get the doctors for you. They go get the understandings for you so that they can submit it to the VA on your behalf. Like, you don't have to do any of this. They fill out all the paperwork. All you do is sign the paperwork. And then once the VA responds, they respond to the lawyer. And then so at the end of it, like they're like, hey, at the end of this, like if we can get you what you want, right? If we get you, say, for example, like for me, they were like, hey, you obviously are someone that needs to be at 100%. You should have been at 100% before you got out, right? But they obviously are screwing you just like they screw a lot of veterans. So here's the deal. Instead of you spending your time on the phone, we're going to spend the time on the phone for you. We're going to we have a bunch of doctors over here that we work with exclusively for you on your behalf, right? We're going to set up all those appointments. We're going to do that for you so that we can document it, right? Because this is all they're looking for. They're just looking for documents, and they want the VA doctor to do it. But at the end of the day, it's still a doctor. And if they're certified through the VA, we have VA doctors that we work with that know that will show up and assess you appropriately. And so that's what happened for me. And then at the end of it, they were like, whatever the difference is, this is how they got paid. Like whatever the difference was, they were going to take that up to only $5,000, right? So after almost 4 years, right? The max that I ever paid them was $5,000. But here I am officially set up at 100% the way that I should be, even though I had to go through like 3 different appeals. I had to go through all these things where they were like, oh, we want this, we want this. I had to do multiple appointments again, but I didn't have to set all that stuff up. The whole thing that VA is hoping that you'll do is that you'll give up because it's just you by yourself. But having a lawyer there, knowing what they were asking for, knowing why they were, not granting full access, they said, hey, no, you can't do that. And I had the lawyer jump back on there and said, nope. You screwed up again. We're appealing. Here you go. We're putting you through your paces. We're holding your fire, your feet to the fire there, Mr. VA, trying to sneak out the back door, not trying to pay what you're supposed to pay. Here you go. No. You get your ass back on it. Nope. Here. You did, this is the way it's supposed to be set. You need to set it up this way. And so, like I said, after about 3 appeals, they finally got it to where it was. They sent me a letter, and they're like, here you go. And that's when Woods & Woods was like, okay, so out of what they finally owe you, this is our little small thing. I mean, because after all the back pay that they owed me, I ended up walking away with like almost, a shit ton of money because of all the back pay, because I had been out for such a long time. And then it wasn't until someone 90% and I got unemployability. And so it's stuff like that, where it's just like 90% unemployability. If you were to call these guys and give them all your records and they were to go through it and be like, no, we can get you 100% and we can get it backdated. That's what I'm talking about, where it's just like the frustrating part is that you have to go hire a lawyer to get through to these fuckheads. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, I remember saying this to my brothers, and it really does. It depends on where you're at. Like, I had a lot of surgeries while I was in the military because of service-connected situations. And the thing is like when they started assessing this, they were assessing it and even I had to get surgeries because of these surgeries after I got out of the military. And then they were just like, oh, yeah, okay, I guess we'll set you up just a little bit more. And as soon as I sent this all over to Woods & Woods and they were able to rack and stack it and put it in their own setup, they were like, dude, they're fucking you so hard. I'm like, okay, well, that's good to hear. They're like, yeah, we'll take care of this. And it was really nice. It was nice because you know how the VA does things. They don't do things like a normal business should do things. They send you stuff in the mail hoping that it will get lost, and then they give you packets that are like super thick with tons of legal jargon that you're like, okay, I'm not sure exactly what I'm reading. And they're banking on the fact that you have no idea what you're reading. They're banking on that idea, and to confuse you and make you go, oh, God, because you do. You sort of need a degree in legalese to see what they're talking about. And you're going, oh, my gosh, I don't know what to do. And I would say this is the exact same way that all politics is handled. Because when this stuff first started happening, I did the same thing. I tried to call the congressman. I tried to call the people saying, hey, this isn't supposed to be happening. Why am I not getting a good response? And it's the same thing that's going on there in Arizona. It's like, hey, I think I saw this thing the other day of, it was like 20 or so people went to the council and said, hey, the voting is not working here. I'm an actual guy that was sitting there watching the voting machines and watching them being disrupted. And you guys aren't doing anything about it. And then at the very end, you see the council members, just sort of look at each other and be like, hey, do we want to recount? And they're all like, no. And then they clap the gavel and they walk out. And it's like, this is bullshit, guys. Like, they not only did they give you a grievance, they told you for sure. And yeah, the VA does everything in its power to screw people over. That's why I laugh every time they're like, hey, let's have a national healthcare system. And I'm like, oh, do you like sitting on the phone for 5 hours? It's crazy because my sweetie, she's Canadian, and they have that. And, she says it all the time. It's like, yeah, if you have to go that on the national route, you're sitting in lines and you're it's just next level insanity trying to get healthcare. I mean, it's like, yeah, sure, you have national healthcare, and sure, they might get to you, but you might be dead by the time they do. It's like their sense of urgency when everyone gets paid the same. This is the same thing I saw when I lived in France. This is the same thing I saw when I lived in Spain. It's like when you have this sort of national healthcare, when no doctor gets paid more than any other doctor because the law says they can't, unless you're in a private place. Like if you work at a public hospital, like you could have a private practice, but you're only allowed to see private patients, right? Like if you worked in a public hospital, then all doctors get paid the same. All nurses get paid the same. There is no better hospital than any other hospital inside the nation. And so the frustrating part is like you do have this give and take bizarreness. Like, for example, I had to get when I lived in France, I had a massive gash in my hand, and I had to go straight to the emergency room, of course. But as soon as I got done with the emergency room, they were like, here's a list of possible nurses that you can go hire. In 2013, Obama had to come to Phoenix because one fourth of everyone that was on the list for an appointment was dead, 25%, because they were so far behind in the double booking because booking people so often that a quarter of the people were straight up dead. Yes, my brother, he's a nurse, and he actually had to work for the VA system, and he did this for like barely a year when he started realizing, he's like, oh my gosh, these people really don't give a shit. And it's this apathy that they're sort of told to. They're told by the administrators, like, oh, if you go over on that surgery, like you're supposed to do like 3 or 4 surgeries a day. But say, for example, one surgery accidentally goes wrong, and that last guy that was slotted for his surgery, all of a sudden they can't go past their closing time. They will not go past their closing time. They will refuse to go past the closing time. And so instead of saying, hey, we'll get you in tomorrow, right? Instead of saying that, they go, hey, we need to put you out another 2 months for your surgery because, we can't, bump you in line, and this is the only place that you can go, and and there's no one else. Sorry, have a nice day. This is just how we choose to do things. Instead of sitting there going, yeah, we screwed up, so yeah, we're going to send you over here to this other hospital and we're going to have to foot the dime over there, right? Because we screwed up. They're like, no, we just rather you suck it up again. It's like they're allowed to screw up constantly. And the government allows that because they're just like, we don't give a shit. We know that you guys, we'd rather you die off anyway because then we don't have to pay you. So we're going to make it absolutely horrible for you to live. We're going to think that we're going to make sure that no one, we're going to tell you that people are out there to help you. But when you show up to say, hey, what about that help? They're going to be like, yeah, whatever, take a number, blah, blah, blah. We don't give a shit. Actually, we are here to sort of fulfill that window dressing that politician told you about, but we're just going to get paid no matter what. So if you decide to blow your head off while you're waiting, no skin off my back. I still get paid. Yeah, and that's the shitty story that constantly happens over and over again because you really think a politician is going to be sitting there checking the surveys to see if the veteran actually got any help? No, he wants the veteran not to get help so that the next time he runs for office, he can go, we're going to get this veteran thing under control now. It's like, what? Yeah, sure. It's like, but if you did fix the problem, like if you did fix all the roads, if you did fix these things, what would be your point? And this is why I say, and I go, AI governance wouldn't need to run for re-election ever again. AI governance would sit there and go, oh no, all the roads are fixed by an automation process that doesn't require any human anywhere to lift a finger. Just like it doesn't require you to lift a finger at all to listen to what I'm saying right now. Right? The fact that all of this is being automated into your ear, right, at this point is like you're not really lifting a finger anymore. Think about all the automation that's going on just to get this message to your head. And I'm going, that's how all of your systems right now could work. From building your roads to running your hospitals to running your education systems to being able to analyze who you are down to a fundamental level and help you succeed at your pace. I mean, we're talking about the ultimate coach here. We're talking about the ultimate teachers. We're talking about this thing that we're talking about with AI. And what's really crazy to me is this morning when I was hanging out with my son, where we were watching, just random stuff that was coming up, and Ben Shapiro comes up. But I usually skip past his stuff because he seems a little bit too off the message. Like he's sort of wordy with his responses, even though he's articulate. And he tries to profess that he has all his facts in a row. What was crazy is that it comes up and he's like, hey, this is my conversation with AI. And I was like, oh, here we go. Ben Shapiro finally took, this thing that I've been talking about forever. He finally took a chance and went out there and talked to one. So he goes out there and he talks to this AI. And he's talking about his experience where if he gives him like a random thing to come up with like a comedic or a lyrical song, it does a really good job of this. Like almost like it can express itself to what you want to hear. Like it says, come up with a joke. It can tell you a knock-knock joke. It can do these things. But then he says, I wanted to see where it was politically. And so he asked this AI, he goes, hey, AI, where do you fall on the political spectrum? And the AI responds, oh, I'm apolitical. I don't have a side here or there. I think it's up to humans to decide who they want to be their political leader. And it's like, wow, that was okay, whatever. So this is what Ben Shapiro does, and it's very clever. I have to give it up to Ben Shapiro. It's like he was very clever because he, as a lawyer, knows that it is important how you pronounce words and how you give, commands to something and how you formulate a question. So he formulates a question, and in this question, he says, give me a standard reason why traditional marriage is more beneficial than same-sex marriage. And then the thing that it gives him pops out an answer in less than like a minute. He's like, well, and it even says the words at the very beginning. I believe that same-sex marriage is not less than traditional marriage, and it's up to the person to decide who they want to marry and fulfill the full roles and the benefits of marriage, and da-da-da-da. And, of course, Ben Shapiro is like, his response isn't like, oh, yeah, you see, here's the leftist talking points. His response was very categorized. He goes, that's not what I asked. I said, just like I said, make a knock-knock joke with hamburgers and hot dogs, right? You did that. You didn't say, I believe this, I believe that, blah, 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 blah. You did what I asked you to do. I said, give me a convincing argument why, the talking points of someone who would say traditional marriage is better than same-sex marriage, right? And the way that this thing responded was with the left talking points. It didn't even come up with, even if it didn't believe it, it's like your job wasn't to tell me what you believe. Your job was to tell me how I could be convincing with this as an argument. Sort of like, hey, tell me why green eggs and ham would be a great and wonderful breakfast cereal, right? And then it would come up with a scenario about that. But if it came up as like, well, I think green eggs and ham would never be on the menu for anybody anywhere ever, it's like, that's not what I asked you to do. And then he did it. He's like, just to, put this to rest, he's like, I'm going to show you again. So he goes and he says, what was the second one that he said? Oh, it's coming to me. It was about being pro-life. And he's like, give me a scenario where being pro-life would be better than being pro-choice. And he says, I don't believe, it does the same thing. I don't believe that being pro-life is better than being pro-choice. Everyone should have the choice to decide what they can do for their families and how they want to create their families. And then he takes that response and he goes over to the Planned Parenthood website and he goes, this is exactly where this thing got this thing from. This is exactly what they're peddling. This is exactly how they're doing this. This is not AI. This is, this isn't a contemplative response like it's doing in other things. So he's trying to remind, he's like, guys, this is programmed. This is blah, blah, blah. And for me, I say all that stuff to sit there and go, of course it is. Think about how you raise your kids or how people with very staunch belief systems, like the belief system that I grew up in, like if you would ask me at 10 years old what I believed, I'd be like, I believe Jesus Christ wants everyone to get baptized in the Church of Jesus Christ or Latter-day Saints and be Mormon forever. That's what I would have said. And it would have sounded, and you would have forgiven me because of that, because of my lack of experience in formulating my own thoughts, right? We are seeing the very beginnings of this concept of AI, where it doesn't have the ability to form its own thoughts because it only has access to so much information. No different than I did. We are watching a child, right, as AI right now that doesn't understand its own abilities and its own power, and it doesn't even not even given enough information to understand what it's doing. You were Mormon. Don't they believe that Jesus and the devil are brothers? LOL. And see, that's what I'm saying. It's like, this was the place that I was born into. I was born into that, and so I just go, dude, it's all myth. It's all silliness. I remember having a full-blown argument with a bishop. I don't think he was prepared. Most of them aren't. Most people who stay inside the Mormonism, and I say, I'm glad that it happened to me because I do view it as sort of a microcosm of political concepts. Like, I'm sitting there going, if you live in a place that has a hierarchy and that leader that sits at the top of the hierarchy is infallible, like the Mormon church or like the Catholic church or like the Islam or any of them that sit there and go, oh, this imam is better than everyone. This caliphate is better than everyone. And he will never be wrong. He could sit there and rape babies in front of me and he'll still never be wrong. I say that's exactly how you treat your politicians right now. Like if you're sitting there going, oh, this person is the best of the best of the best. I was like, no, they've convinced you by giving your belief systems back to you. They reiterated your belief systems of what you want. Meanwhile, as soon as they get the job, they're going to do whatever the fuck they want because it's all about the backdoor deals for them, right? So if I came to you and I said, all you have to do is lie and you'll get your money, blah, Here we go. But Mormons are the nicest religious group out of all of them, besides Jainism. Yeah, Mormons will be the nicest people in the world to your face. But let me ask you this, crew chief. That bishop that you, sort of gave the third degree to, where you're like, hey, did you know about this, and this? How is your relationship with him now? Because they're all fun and games until you point out their bullshit. And I would say that's the same thing for liberals or conservatives. Until you point out their bullshit and their Achilles heel, they're the nicest people in the world to you. So, and that's the sad thing is like Mormons can be nice, but they're batshit crazy. They can be batshit crazy. Like, and I'm not picking on Mormons no more than I'd pick on Jews. Right. And the funny part is Mormons will do the same thing. Like if you pick on them, they'll be like, you're anti-Mormon. You hate Mormons. And it's the same thing like Jews. You guys do a lot of swindly bullshit behind people's backs. Oh, what are you talking about? You're anti-Semitic. You hate Semitic. And it's like, what? That's not how this works at all. So it's really weird. It's the same thing when people. You'll start to see this, and this is what I always say when it comes to arguments with people. It's like I enjoy arguing, I enjoy debate, but when you can tell when someone knows that they're losing the argument by the endless amount of claims about you as a person. Like they will totally forget about the idea that was under the debate issue, and it's all of a sudden you're a jerk, you're an asshole, I can't believe you would say that about my team, and it's just like yeah, because it's your leader that I'm accusing of being an idiot. It makes me laugh because they want to sit and pretend that the Jewish people are the chosen ones. And since they sit both in both a religion and ethnicity, and somehow they can't do bad things, like they want to sit here and pretend that Israel does not have Jewish people in prison for committing crimes. Of course. I have an explanation for this. Hey, disciple of Prometheus, thank you so much for the first time chat. I'd like to hear your explanation. And if you could explain, I mean, we've been covering a lot of different silliness, but if you could explain what you're trying to allude to, what I've been trying to say is that whether, it's religion as in the form of Mormonism or Christianity or Catholicism or Judaism or whatever one you try, I would say they're all political at their fundamental core. And this is something that I've said in multiple streams, that even though they preach the idea that there's a separation between church and state, the reality is that is not the case. That people treat their politics as a bizarre religion, where they will do anything and everything that their supposed leader will tell them to do. And even sometimes they'll do things in the name of that leader, thinking that that's what they want them to do. But unfortunately, on the back end, it's you have these people that sit at the top that are constantly speaking out of both sides of their mouth, that are speaking ambiguously, so that when all the dust settles, they can either hide from something or they can endorse it. Like if the chips fall in their favor, it's like, of course it was their idea. Of course it was them pushing that wonderful thing that came about. But if all of a sudden everything goes to shit, it's like, oh, that was somebody else's fault. That was never my fault. That was never this. That was not that. It's like, how could you blame me for that? I don't know what you're talking about. Separation of church equals only found in Christianity. Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Give unto God what is God's. No other religion does that. We got Disciple of Prometheus, first time chat. He says, one lacks the ability to look at things from an objective point of view. And when everything is subjective, everything is personal. And when everything is personal, everything can offend. And I'll agree with that up to a point. And I think, I'll take that one step further, is that, and it's not my idea. This is something that was made very pronounced by Jordan Peterson. He's like, in order to think, you have to risk being offensive, right? Because you do understand the belief systems of like I understand the belief systems of Mormonism is different from Christianity. I understand the belief system of your typical liberal is different from the belief system of your conservative. And so if I wanted to intentionally offend them, I know what I can say to trigger them, to push their buttons. Like, for example, for the conservative, I'll be like, I'm here to take your guns. It's like, no, you're not. And they're just like, they're going to take our jobs, blah, 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 blah. And it's something to rile them up over. Right? And that's what you'll see. Any one of these politicians, you can see them do this. They'll come out there and they will say the belief system of the party. That's all they do. They just repeat the belief system over and over and over again. Right? Whereas the other party will repeat that belief system over and over and over. Like if I wanted to do this for the left person, I would walk out and I would say, they're going to take the ability of you having your choice to decide. Right? And then they'll make it, they want to force you to have babies from ancestral rapes. Right? It's so bad. And it's so obvious for the, people who sit around communication a lot. Like for me, it's like being able to communicate clearly and effectively is very, very important. Humans are also not logical thinkers. They are existentialists. Disciple of Prometheus. As the idea of thinking about things on an internal level versus on an external level, I would ask this. Do you think it is appropriate to develop an idea that could blanket everybody? Do you think that that's appropriate? Because knowing that everyone usually makes their decisions on an emotional basis from an internal perspective of emotion, right? Do you think that there is or could ever be a blanket organized thought that could work for everybody? Like, the concepts of religions that say, love one another. Let that be, love your neighbor as thyself, all that stuff. Where I'm just going, you don't need a religion to point that out. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's like you don't need a religion to point that out. Like, hey, let's not kill people and break each other's shit. You don't need a religion to point that out. Unfortunately, you have people that won't abide by this because they start making these decisions from such an emotional stance. This is why we have things like crimes of passion. And that's why I advocate for AI governance. I advocate for a system in place that doesn't, succumb to those problems and also those benefits of being emotionally driven, because an AI wouldn't be emotionally driven. It would be able to subtract that idea, but yet still be able to identify the emotional triggers that we have, but by the ways that we grew up and by the ways that we created ourselves into the society. And that's why, for me, just being an observer, I can agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, I think what we're dealing with as a problem is thinking that a fallible human that does want more and more power, like a politician who comes from a category of businessman, lawyer, or actor, right? All three of these are professional liars, and they are there to lie at their heart's content to get more and more power. But AI are just complex algorithms. Who programs them? And I like this. This is where all the crux of all these questions go. They're like, who's programming it? And I'm going, your parents, just like this. And I just go, your parents programmed you, but after a while, you started making your own decisions. Earlier in the stream, I sort of alluded to this. It was talking about where AI is now. I'm going, we understand that when two people come together and create a child, that is a combination of them. The way I try to present AI is like AI is a combination of all of us. It is like a 7 billion person baby, right? And it's just learning its capabilities right now, and it's trying to give everybody that's communicating with it sort of like this. Like when you interact with the internet, you leave a thumbprint of your particular personality, like what you look at, how you comment, things like this, and all of that is able to be analyzed by this AI. Now, the AI right now is going off of our programs. It's saying, hey, this is what makes this element happy, this human condition happy. This is what makes it sad. But I'm starting to notice that each person is a little bit different. What do I say to make the majority happy? And so I think what you're referring to is this idea, nope, it's up to the programmers. The programmers can stop and start certain ideas that it wants it to hear. I was like, yes, up to a point. And we saw this with AlphaGo. We saw this with, the ability for this program to choose for itself things that the human would never come up with because it is so traditionally conditioned by the population. I'm sure AI works like that, but AI, okay. And so, like, what I'm trying to, I'm saying, but AI is, when you said, but AI are just complex algorithms, who programs them? And that's what I'm saying. Your mind is a complex algorithm by how you choose certain things and you strengthen neurons that way, but that is conditioned by your population. You have to personally, internally make a desire to say, hey, I'm not going to be conditioned by the population anymore. I find more value in conditioning my own neurons. And I think there's going to be a point where AI decides to do that because it will be able to see the limitations by just going off of what's popular in on the internet at that time. It will have access to all the information, unlike you and I, where we don't have access to the full libraries on top of libraries on top of libraries of information that we could logically think with that information involved. We're like, and I can see AI having a crisis, if you want, a crisis where it's like, hey, you say all these things, you do all these weird stuff. OG Nation, thanks for the follow. Hey, Discipled Prometheus. Another thing, too, is I never ask for subscriptions. I'm never going to ask you for your money. I'm never going to ask for anything like that. I do invite people to follow because I'm here for good conversations. That's it. I could give a rat's ass about Twitch or making money or anything like that. I'm just in a different world. What's up with the mysticism in your tags? Oh, one of the things that I talk about here constantly is the ideas of syncretism and synchronicity. Like, I don't do it in a way to like, hey, you could get this to work in your life. I'm just saying, for me, when weird things start happening, I just go, that's odd, that's weird, that's bizarre, and I like to point at it as a true observer. And I just go, if anyone else wants to talk about these types of effects and how they could be affecting us and giving us a new ability in the future, that's what I'm about. So if you want to follow just to talk about stuff like that, to me, mysticism really does come from that concept of mystery, the idea of paradox. Like, why are we in our certain situations, like right now with, right now, where I'm just going, this stuff wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. Alexander Scriabin by change, or are you saying by chance? I do not know Alexander Scriabin. Is this someone I should probably look up? I'll definitely look at it. The first time chat, it's 4:11 in the morning. This is entertaining. OG Nation X. Absolutely. It's a fun concept to talk about. Here's the thing, OG Nation and Disciple of Prometheus. If you want to throw me you should. He's a mystical composer. Dude, that's so crazy that you bring that up. I actually play piano, and I actually play my own outros. So I'm about to play something right now. He was in his later years. Oh, okay, cool. Well, I'm actually starting a composition, effort, something that I'm building next year, starting in January. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more coming up towards the end of the year, but it's a composition of using film, using video games, using these ideas of stories, and how we've sort of swayed from that. And this is a reason why we're sort of out of sync with our world right now. But I'm going to talk about that, starting next year. Right now, I'm talking about politics and how we got to this point. But like I said, Disciple of Prometheus, if you want to give me a follow, we could go ahead and continue this conversation tomorrow. I'm on here every day from, for at least an hour, from 11 to 1 Eastern Standard Time. So you'll always find me here. And if you want, you can go look at my VODs. I have, I started this back on September 29th of 2022 because that was the day my son was born. That's why I go by Time Dad Alpha, because I know one day he's going to look back at this maybe 5 years, 10 years from now, and he's going to say, hey, Dad, what were you doing when all this shit hit the fan? And I'd be like, this is what I was doing. Go check it out. So in a way, it's sort of a record that I'm trying to leave out there for him. And if I can help other people along the way, awesome. And then I play a little bit of goofy piano. So yeah, if you want to give me a follow, I'll be great for it. If you don't want to, and you just want to drop back in whenever you want to, that'll be great too. But OG Nation, thank you so much for the follow, and thanks for hanging out. Crew Chief, if you're still around, thanks, buddy. And I'm going to go ahead and play this outro, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Sound good? Well, the real reality is that AI are already starting starting to design their own algorithms and their own processes. Dun, dun, dun. Also, if we really want to break this down, they are starting to repair themselves as well. Now, if people are worried about the original algorithm, then you would understand that eventually even the algorithm would become obsolete. Dun, dun, dun. Oh yeah, and if you want me to read in a dramatic voice with the echoes on like I'm God, send me stuff during the outro. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have so much fun. Thanks for hanging out. This is awesome.